Specific reason why Everton's 4-5-1 was so hard to break down, how Manchester United looked to exploit the positioning of Onana and Iwobi, why the counter-press was king in this game, and what did I make of the performances of Martial and Cristiano Ronaldo. All of that will be coming up in this video. But before I get into that, I have got a special announcement from the sponsors of today's video, OneFootball, which is now the place where on a Saturday night, if you're in the UK or Ireland, you can watch one free Italian Serie A game each weekend. As well as this, you can also use all the other football features that I've spoken about before with OneFootball. So if you are interested in watching European football, but just don't have anywhere to watch it, then you can go to the competition page linked in the description, and you can check out the free match that will be streamed this weekend. You can also watch highlights of all the Serie A games, and near live instant clips as well whilst the games are going on. And by downloading the OneFootball app, you will be helping to support the channel. So from the start of the game, the pattern of play seemed to be set out with Lampard and Everton deploying a fairly passive 4-5-1 defensive system, with Ten Hag's side moving from a 2-4-3-1 in the build-up phase, with Dalot and Shaw holding their width as usual, and Casemiro and Eriksen taking it in turns to drop off and collect the ball from the back line when needed, to a 2-3-5 shape in possession in the middle third. However, unlike against City and Arsenal, United had a fairly easy time progressing the ball out of their defensive third in the build-up phase, because Everton were content to really only have Maupay applying the pressure and cutting the passing lanes high up the pitch, inside United's box with Onana and Iwobi wide of Gay, holding their positions alongside Eriksen and Casemiro rather than committing to an aggressive press, and this was done to contain United, not necessarily to win the ball high up the pitch. With Onana and Iwobi retaining central positions close to Gay behind them, this made it significantly harder for United to progress the ball through the centre of the pitch. And whilst United didn't have many problems moving the ball from the defensive to the middle third, it was certainly in the middle third when United were trying to progress the ball into the final third where they encountered problems with Everton's system. This was because Lampard's side defended in a very flat and compact 4-5-1 shape, with the wingers Gordon and Gray being tasked with tracking the movements of the United fullbacks down the flank and supporting their fullback behind them, looking to provide them with defensive support to stop Antony and Rashford, isolating them in 1v1s. But of course, with the wingers doing this diligent defensive work, they are obviously going to be in deeper positions, and so it was up to Onana and Iwobi either side of Gay to push out and close down the likes of Lindelof, Martinez and Eriksen when they looked to move forward with the ball wide of Maupay, the lone presser. Now this was an incredibly defensive Everton shape, and because their forward press was so passive and the midfield retained deeper positions, the whole shape was both vertically and horizontally compact, leaving no space between the lines. However, this is where elite tactical setups distance themselves from simple functional setups, as in order to progress the ball into the final third and create, United in this situation needed to use their movement to create space within the Everton system, and the way I think is best to approach this, breaking down a flat 4-5-1 like Everton's, is to look to get players in each of the half space, and you can look to do this by shifting the ball wide of the lone centre forward, which was Maupay in this game, and drawing a central midfielder on that side, Onana on the left and Iwobi on the right, out of the midfield line as they look to close down the space for Martinez, Lindelof or Eriksen, and in doing so they open up a pocket of space in behind them. Now, in order to perform this attacking pattern most efficiently, you can use what I like to call positional pinning, and all this means is positioning an attacker in a position simply to force an opposition player to follow and create space elsewhere. In practice, in this game for example, this would have looked like Rashford retaining a high and wide position in the corner, pulling Seamus Coleman away from the half space with Luke Shaw pulling wide to drag Gordon into a wider position, as Casemiro looks to draw Idrissa Gay in, with Dalot also positioning himself in a way that forces Onana to look over his shoulder. All of this is essentially done to drag Everton players away from each other with their man-to-man pressing, creating a bigger half space from where Fernandes shouldn't just remain in statically, as that would make it easy for the Everton midfield line to adjust and close off his space. Instead, he should look to drop off into the half space mid-move. Rather than making a movement off the back of Gay when one of the centre-backs has the ball, he should instead wait until the ball goes into Luke Shaw or Eriksen midway through the passing sequence, making it hard for Gay to track him, and hopefully more often than not, with Fernandes making this late run away from Gay, he should be able to receive a pass in this position from where he can look to turn and create. And we did see United do this to an extent, with Eriksen dropping off in front of Iwobi and Dalot inverting in front of Onana to do this on the right side of Casemiro, as the Brazilian would retain a central role, giving United a 2-3-5 shape in possession, when Luke Shaw would also look to push forward down the left flank. We did see some positional fluidity, but the 2-3-5 shape remained a constant, with sometimes Shaw holding a deep deeper, narrower position alongside Casemiro, with Eriksen between the lines and Rashford holding the width on the left side, and other times it would be Eriksen in a deep position and Rashford in a central position looking to break in behind and stretch the Everton backline with those diagonal runs in between the fullback and centre-back. But as I said, Everton defended very well. They were very conservative in their approach, but it was effective when United had sustained possession in the middle third. However, when there was a quick transition and United countered quickly, they found Everton's weakness and exploited it clinically. You can see here for Antony's equaliser that there's a turnover in the middle of the pitch, and Fernandes immediately feeds a vertical pass into Martial, and from here United are able to exploit the lack of pace on the turn when running back in the Everton defence, as when Martial is able to turn, both Rashford and Antony either side of him have already got the wrong side of their fullback, Mykolenko on the left and Coman on the right, and Martial's rate of pass is perfect. Tarkowski can't match Antony for pace, and the finish, like against Arsenal, seems predictable, but it's placed perfectly beyond Pickford to give United the lead, making that the third very good goal that Antony has scored this season. This was a perfect example of a counter-pressing goal. The counter-press, whilst usually coming from winning the ball back slightly higher up the pitch, can be an extremely effective weapon against deep defensive units like Everton, as by moving the ball quicker up the pitch, straight after a turnover, this allows you to take advantage of the space between the lines that is hard to exploit when the opposition has 10 men behind the ball, and this was exactly the case for United's first and their second goal. We see here for the second goal that, like the first, there's a turnover in the centre of the pitch, with Casemiro immaculately dispossessing Iwobi, and like Fernandes did, Casemiro immediately looks for a direct vertical pass, and with Ronaldo in the side, you already know he's anticipated the turnover and spins into the space on the left side between Everton's right back and centre back. The pass releases Ronaldo perfectly, and from this position he shows that form is temporary but class is permanent, as he drives into position before coolly slotting the ball under Pickford with his left foot to put Manchester United in the lead before half time. So despite Ten Hag's side doing exactly what they should have from a tactical point of view, when Everton sat in a low block 4-5-1, United's best chances and goals came from quick transitioning attacks, where United attacked directly through the spaces in the Everton system, showing that although Ten Hag's philosophy prioritises more possession rather than counter-attacks, this type of counter-press can be extremely effective, not just against sides like City and Arsenal, who will look to dominate possession, but also against sides like Everton, where the opportunity to use the pace and the passing precision up front to exploit the spaces in the midfield and in behind the back line may not be there too often in the game because of how deep an opposition side like Everton would sit. Now, Everton in possession were fairly limited. They did initially look to play out from the back during the build-up, taking up a 2-3-2-3 shape, but United looked to press quite high even though it wasn't overly aggressive, with Antony and Rashford sitting high and narrow, and because of this advanced positioning of the United front four, Everton would instead abandon that method and instead go a lot more direct. This was because with Martial acting as the passing lane cutter, forcing the centre-back over to one flank and blocking off the pass back across goal, Fernandes would sit on Idrissa Gueye, and Antony and Rashford would be able to sit high and press as centre-backs, was also being supported by Martial. With Eriksen and Casemiro man-to-man on Onana and Iwobi, this meant that Everton's only real outlet to beat the press was a lofted pass over to the fullbacks. However, whilst Pickford is a very good long passing keeper, both Mykolenko and Coman aren't that comfortable at controlling lofted passes on the flank and retaining possession, and so Everton proceeded to go long from the build-up. But with Mopai up front lacking the same aerial presence as Dominic Calvert-Lewin, Everton didn't have that focal point to go direct to, and so Everton instead would have a lot of turnovers in possession, which was a key reason why United were able to control the ball for most of the game. However, Everton's direct attacking style did lead to them opening the scoring, and like with Manchester United's 2 goals, it came from a counter press, but this time just 5 minutes into the game. We see here that United are pressing Everton in what is temporarily a 4-3-3, with Antony retaining a temporary deeper position, trying to cut off that pass from Pickford over to Mykolenko or Gray on the left side. Pickford does go long and the ball eventually falls to Antony in the middle third. Antony then plays a pass into Casemiro, who doesn't quite have the press resistance of a top level regista like a Busquets or a Rodri, and we see this here as whilst Onana does do excellently to come across and put in a standing challenge, Casemiro simply can't afford to lose the ball in this position, as Eriksen alongside him doesn't have the athleticism to then move over and close off that space, allowing Demarai Gray to drive into the final third, shifts the ball out to Iwobi, whose long range curling strike flies past De Gea Gea, punishing Casemiro's mistake. See, Everton did a pretty good job of stifling United. It's just that Ten Hag's side were able to create through moments, and those moments came via the counter press and the transitioning of the attack quickly. And so United were able to go in at half time with an XG of 1.58, with Everton recording just 0.03, showing just how much Everton struggled to create in the first half. Ten Hag's use of fullbacks in this game was also very interesting. Shaw on the left is a much better overlapping option compared to Malacia in my opinion, as the Englishman suits that more advanced wider role because of his ability to drive the attack forward at pace. We saw Shaw pushing up on the left flank, which enabled Rashford to drift into more of an inside forward position, rather than as a natural winger, though he wasn't looking to drop into the half space. Instead, he was looking to burst in between his fullback and the centre back. Meanwhile, on the other side, Antony retained a much wider position, looking to pull Mikalenko away from Tarkowski and create space for Fernandes to make underlapping runs into from deep, and this did lead to a great chance for Martial in the first half, after Fernandes' cutback found the Frenchman, but he couldn't quite get the ball out from under his feet. The wide positioning of Antony allowed Dalot to retain a deeper, more inverted position, with him dropping alongside Casemiro to create a deep three ahead of the centre-backs, whilst also pushing up into the half space between the lines when Lindelof or Casemiro had possession on the right side. However, we would see changes to Shaw and Dalot's positioning throughout the game, with sometimes Shaw dropping narrow and deep, and sometimes Dalot pulling out wide to the right, and this was to disrupt the positioning of the two Everton wingers, Gordon and Damari Gray, sometimes forcing them to track the run into a deep position alongside their fullback, creating space in front of them, whilst if they followed their fullback narrow, this would leave space on the flank for Rashford or Antony to isolate their fullback in a 1v1. I would still like to see Manchester United's wingers Antony and Rashford drive at their fullback when they do get into these positions, as it seems like the most effective outlet for ball progression when United come up against these deep defensive units. However, as of yet, both Rashford and Antony have made their marks through their off-the-ball runs into goal-scoring positions, rather than their dribbles past players in the final third. With Martial as a centre forward, I think United have the perfect balance in that front three, as Martial is capable of playing more as a deeper line forward, dropping off to link the attack, and allowing Antony and Rashford to make those line-breaking runs ahead of him. His interplay in congested areas with the likes of Fernandes and Rashford is phenomenal, and I'd say he's a much better option as a centre forward than Rashford is, who I think thrives more when playing as an inside forward from the left, as like he showed for his goal, which was eventually disallowed, when he does get into those wide one-on-one positions, his composure and his finishing technique is almost back to the level it was a few seasons ago, and so having Marcus Rashford as a runner in the attack from a wide position is going to be a lot more effective in getting him into goal scoring positions, rather than him playing as a centre forward who has to link the play with his back to goal. Now, Ronaldo does provide something slightly different to Martial. Whilst I do prefer Martial's link play in the middle and final third and his ability to inject pace into the attack, Ronaldo showed his superiority around the box, being a lot more clinical when he gets in front of goal, with Martial sometimes falling just short of getting the ball out of his feet and finishing when he's inside of the box, with the chance created from Bruno Fernandes' cutback in the first half a great example of this. Other than the mistake in possession for Iwobi's goal, Casemiro was very good throughout this match, earning the Man of the Match award from Gary Neville. Now, he's not as good a progressive passer as Eriksen, but he's certainly an improvement on McTominay and Fred in these possession situations, whilst he also brings that aggressive ball-winning ability in the middle of the park that Casemiro specialises in, and he was able to combine his defensive work alongside some creativity for the assist for Ronaldo's goal, and ultimately it was a fantastic performance from Ten Hag's side at a stadium and against a side who are seen as somewhat of a bogey side, particularly for the top 6 sides at home, as Goodison Park is always a tough ground to go to and get a win, and United were able to do this. And I think with Casemiro and Martial potentially back in the side, if Martial's injury isn't too bad, hopefully it's not, and with Shaw and Ronaldo proving that they can come into the side and produce top level performances, I think the rest of the first part of this season before the World Cup does look very promising for Ten Hag's side. So thank you for watching. If you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel and click the bell so you do get notified when my videos come out, and check the description for some of my other videos as well.